Go. Okay. Right. So, welcome to the self care workshop. My name is Caitlin. I'm an instructor at Lerner Health and Wellness Center, well, virtually this semester and over the summer. I teach body combat, I teach core training, I teach HIIT class, and also lit yoga, which is a physical therapy based yoga method. So I teach a couple times throughout the week, also a personal trainer and health coach. So talking about self-care is something that I do, you could say pretty regularly, but also really enjoy talking about because it is such an important topic. And so we can really focus on different aspects of wellness. And I kind of look at wellness in like the shape of a wheel almost, because there's essentially 5 key parts to wellness, where you have you look at your fitness, nutrition, hydration, sleep, and stress management. So they all work together to provide us balance in our lives. And so it's a really interesting topic, and one that I am very excited to share with everyone. And so before we get started, either in the chat or if you wanted to come off mute, wanted to hear about where you're from, a little bit more about you, since we're a little bit smaller group today. So, which is great because we can have a really good conversation about self-care and particularly for the activity that we're going to do today. So, if you want to pop in the chat where you're listening in or dialing in from today, if you're a student, staff, alum, anything like that, get to cater the discussion more to what you both are looking for. And then also, what are your goals related to either self-care or just related to the workshop in general? So you can kind of 1 or 2 sentence intro either in the chat, or if you feel comfortable wanting to come off mute, up to you.
I can talk. My name is Maro Youssef, an alum, and I'm doing my PhD now. I'm in my final year. I'm based in California, and with self-care, I need everything I can get in this final year working in a pandemic. I think sleep is an issue for me, and nutrition goes down when I'm stressed. But working out has been good during the pandemic, actually, and I have been told by many people to structure my schedule around workouts so that, I ensure that I do that. But I think sleep and nutrition might be suffering a little bit.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I know self-care can be, it's a very reflective topic. So I appreciate you both sharing. And yeah, we'll definitely talk about the role of sleep and how it affects kind of all those other elements of the wellness wheel. It's kind of like a metaphor thing that I use with all of my personal training clients, or even as a health coach and things like that, just to be able to show how they all interact with each other and they all have an impact on each other too. So yeah, especially during stressful times like this, where things change day by day, and we're trying to balance everything and do it all from home and stay safe and everything. So yeah, we'll definitely unpack a few of those different elements, especially when it comes to sleep and its effect on nutrition. And that's great that for fitness, you've been able to build that in more being at home. I know that's something that I've been really working with too, is kind of that balance between like teaching and then also my own fitness as well. So yeah, it's been a good conversation. So thanks for sharing.
Hello, I'm Himani, actually working GW School of Medicine as a research assistant in a laboratory. But I liked your class. I joined a lot of different classes, late yoga and other things. And I feel like what you organized as about the workshop, there is a lot of different topics we can talk. So I feel interested. My little bit problem with my sometimes I feel like little tired, and sleeping is little problem also. So I need some guidance to how to improve my sleep and how to work energetically.
Definitely. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I know that's one thing that I'm always working on too, is trying to, especially because we're, in front of screens so much more all the time now. It's, that can have an effect on our ability to get a good solid night's sleep. So I have some tips that we can go through. And I'll also share, I'll message it in the chat also, my own Facebook page, been putting together a wellness group, and we've been recently talking about sleep. So I think it's a really good topic if you'd like to join that as well and learn more. So I'll put my Facebook page title in there and the link to the group, so that way you can join and we can have those conversations and kind of all work together, because that's what it's all about in that group too. So to keep the conversation going past today, because that's what it is. Self-care is a daily practice. And it's one that we're always working on. It's always evolving. So yeah, we can definitely talk about the role of sleep and how that some good kind of tips for sleep habits. Sleep hygiene is even a term that's been thrown around too, about what's the best way to set ourselves up for a really good night's sleep, and then how that kind of translates into the next day and everything like that too. So yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Nutrition also, like what kind of nutrition all the way, like which like morning time, what nutrition will be helpful for body, like to be energetic, and what is the night time, like this type of things, if you can discuss a little bit.
Yeah, I can give that that general scope of like kind of what the main macros are all about. And there's some great resources out there, and I'll put all of these in the chat too, because I think it's always helpful to kind of have those resources linked in the chat for you. So things like USDA My Plate gives a really good look at how you can balance out your plate essentially with every meal. I can share a little bit about my experience when it comes to nutrition, especially for me being, being in the fitness industry too, where you're trying to balance having energy and then also wanting to get the right amount of protein in during the day, and kind of what are some good rules of thumb. And that's going to be kind of another topic that I'll be discussing in the wellness group that's on my Facebook page too. So we can definitely keep, having those discussions too. And again, even nutrition is one of those evolving things, but yeah, we can definitely talk about that today too. So awesome.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that we have similar concerns, because energy is an issue and sleep is definitely an issue. Like, I look at my schedule and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to wake up tomorrow because I have so much to do, so that I'm not rested. And it's the same thing as you, Himani. I have so much to do and I need the energy to do it. So I think nutrition will be helpful. So I'm really glad I came. It's a small group and it sounds like it could be tailored. So it's really cool.
Yeah, because these workshops they're for you, and it's it's when it's a smaller group, it's really, I think, a good way to kind of help shape the conversation to what you're looking for and make it an impactful discussion. And yeah, so I think this will be it'll be two very important topics, I think, sleep and nutrition, and it actually tees up. It's like you guys have read my mind with what I was going to discuss today, because it tees up with how we look at what our energy expenditure is throughout the day. And so we'll discuss, how much of our, energy that we need or expend during the day comes from the effect of the food that we eat, what our body needs to be able to do to function, like our organs and just those daily metabolic functions. That's a component. Then there's the non-exercise activity that we do. So that could be your household chores and, even things like cooking or cleaning, things like that. That all kind of is another component of the energy burn throughout the day. And then exercise is another part, but it's a smaller part that I think is realized. And so that'll be, we'll talk through that, and it's called TEE, total energy expenditure. So yeah, and so sleep and nutrition really play a key part in that. And so it's definitely something I always, when I have conversations with personal training clients, or even just, students who come to my classes in general, if they have general questions, the importance of nutrition and hydration, they really affect how your body feels throughout the day from a basic metabolic functioning perspective. And then also how it translates later into workouts. But it's a really cool topic to look at TEE. Awesome, great. Yeah, so I think since we're a smaller group, rather than kind of trying to read off some slides that I have, I'll just kind of really go through like the conversation piece of it and kind of what we'll talk about today. And then if you'd like, I can email you both the slides if you're interested, to have, for reference and things like that. But, talking about kind of the importance of self-care and signs of, potential overtraining for fitness and things to look out for, injury prevention, and then recommendations for practicing self-care. And we'll, like I said, unpack those different elements of sleep, hydration, stress management, and nutrition, because they all, like I said, they go hand in hand. My wellness wheel is it's a thing that I always talk about, but it's all the elements are really important and they all work together. And so we've kind of already been talking about the importance of self-care based on what you both have already shared, when it comes to, all the things that you're doing throughout the day, school, work, and especially now we're trying to manage a very stressful time. Self-care is really important. It's something to practice every day. And so it comes from wanting to practice. Oh, see another person join. Hello, welcome. So when it comes to self-care, it keeps you, healthy. It keeps you safe. It keeps you motivated to, do all the things that you have to do throughout the day. It keeps you energized and it keeps you balanced. And I think that's the key thing out of looking at self-care is that art of balance. I think is really the most important thing. So when it comes to some signs of, if you're from a fitness perspective, when you're overtraining, you can have that constant fatigue or low energy. You might not want to train that day, things like that. There could be, poor performance during a session, or, when you're working out in your home, some lingering injuries that might not go away. You feel a little bit more compromised with your immune system. You might feel some, pretty consistent soreness that isn't normally there when you have that greater energy. And sometimes that can also keep your cortisol levels. So cortisol is the stress hormone in the body. And when it's consistently elevated, that has an impact on your resting heart rate. It can elevate your resting heart rate, and it can also kind of keep the body in kind of that constant like fight or flight, where it's, it's always trying to be prepped and ready to have to, react or adapt. And sometimes it can trigger different cravings for sometimes, either like sugary foods or sweet foods, things like that. There's been some from a nutritional standpoint that can happen too. And so when it's constantly elevated, that isn't a good thing. But there is a natural stress that happens through exercise, because we are putting stress on the body. Even though, you might not think of it that way, that is, what exercise is. It's a form of stress. We're trying to either build the muscles back up, or, from a cardio perspective, or, we're putting some demand on the body. And so the body is reacting to that. And so, but when we do it too much, when cortisol levels get really high and stay consistently high, then it becomes a bit, you can start to see some of those effects and those signs of overtraining. So that's the importance of rest and everything. And when it comes to recovery and things like that, and keeping a really balanced training, regimen. So that's one of the key things there. And so when we look at prioritizing, what types of training to do and what types of exercise, I think even within the wellness wheel that I have, that I've been referencing quite a bit, I kind of have like a smaller wheel when it comes to fitness. And I look at prioritizing strength training, which I know right now can be tough, not having access to a gym. But things, even household items act as a really good form of resistance with training. So even like if you have a gallon of water at home, that's 8 pounds, and you can take 2 of them and you can do some Romanian deadlifts, or you could do some rows. So there's ways to be safe and creative with household items to get that strength training in. even doing your own body weight for certain exercises like squat or a lunge or a push-up, that's still putting that, that load and that demand on the body. And then also balancing it with cardio, core training, particularly now since we're at home, kind of hunched over at the computer a little bit more. Core training helps build and sustain really good posture because our core muscles are endurance muscles. And so they're working all day long to keep us upright, to keep us standing tall. And that helps us, having a good, strong core. It's posture, yes, but it also helps with breathing well. And that's another way to help, reduce some of that effective, feeling that flight or flight sense sometimes if you have more shallow breathing or things like that. So, but having a strong core really helps you get really full breaths. And then also having a mind and body practice, whether it be a yoga or I teach another format called Les Mills Body Flow. Outside of the States, it's called Body Balance, but it's a yoga inspired format, or even Pilates is another great practice as well. And so having that balance within your schedule. Now that being said, you also want to have, you also want your trainings to be fun, right? It's a way for it to kind of like let go. You want to have fun. And so that's what I always encourage people, because that's how you can adapt those sustainable habits for fitness and, having an exercise routine is doing things that are fun. So for cardio, like for me, I like to do HIIT training or cardio training. That's what I find really enjoyable and fun. And also body combat is really fun when I want to go for a longer endurance session. I also love to cycle. So doing like a socially distant bike ride, socially distant walks. But I know people that love to do dance, and dance can be your cardio. If you really enjoy that too. So you can, really make it your own. But I always encourage that variety, and particularly prioritizing strength training because of its benefits for in terms of fat loss, but in terms of also keeping our bones strong too. And so that's a really important thing, thinking kind of, as you get older when it comes to bone density. And so it's always kind of the one that I would prioritize, when you're thinking about your fitness throughout the week. And so, but it's all the others, again, support each other too. Was there a question? Okay, no worries. I thought there was a question for a second, but yeah, so that's essentially one of the key things about with the fitness and self-care is having variety, not doing too much of one thing, but also having fun with it. We want to make it enjoyable. And so when you're thinking about doing fitness at home, and wanting to be kind of in that, wanting to be motivated to do your workout or something like that, you can, what I like to do for myself, especially when I do my own training, is I put a little reminder on my calendar and kind of make an appointment for myself or appointment with myself. And I just kind of, that's my time to do, like today is my strength training day for upper body exercises. So got it on my calendar. And I, put it at a good time, that works for me and things like that. And that's, I found that can help for some people too. And you're just carving out that time for yourself. So yeah, I'll pause here for a second if anyone has questions about fitness or anything I can further clarify about that. Yeah.
So I do number 2 and 3. I don't do much of number 1. Mm-hmm. So when you send the slides, will you have examples of strength training? I don't know that much about it. I know you gave us some examples right now. Does this include like light weights at home or?
Yeah, it can. It can include light weights at home, and how you can adapt it to, because you can do squats up and down, but how you can mix it up with squats is another great thing. Like you can play with tempo, you can slow it down, you can do pauses at the bottom. So there's a lot of different ways to get variety in, because I know kind of just doing squats on their own can get boring sometimes after a while. So, but it's different ways to mix it up, which is great for the muscles too. So yeah, I will make sure that that they're in there a little bit in more detail. And then if you have additional questions about other exercises, I've got some a lot on my Instagram page too, and I'll put that in that my Instagram handle in the chat. So that way, if you want to check it out for things with like technique tips too, so things that you can watch in either little videos or pictures that I put up as a good additional resource. And then if you have any additional questions, I'll put a lot of stuff in the chat as we go through today. You can always email me too if you want to and have any more questions about how you can kind of plan it throughout the week and based on what you have at home too. Because I know what everybody's got at home is a little bit different. I've been kind of building out my home gym since being in lockdown, so to speak, or being at home. So it's everybody's got different things, but there's things that we can all work with. Like I think resistance bands are a great tool to have at home. They're versatile, they're portable, inexpensive as well. So it's a great thing to get started with. It helps with strength training and it helps a lot with core training because you can use resistance bands in lots of different ways. But yeah, I'll make sure that that information's in there for you. Anyone else have questions? Yeah, so yeah, the key with fitness, I think, is that variety is really what brings that kind of, balance to everything. And it's one of the key takeaways, I think, for fitness. Excuse me, for fitness. When it comes to looking at nutrition, that was a question that was brought up in the beginning was, kind of how do you map it out? And it's there's some good rules of thumb, I think, through USDA's MyPlate, when it kind of shows you how to balance it out. One thing I recommend and is having veggies at every single meal, fruits and veggies, incorporating plants as part of each and every meal. Because plants not only are great source of carbohydrates, but also a great source of micronutrients that the body needs to function well, vitamins, minerals, all of those really important things. So having that balance, you can, like this morning I had like my egg scramble that I make and I throw some spinach in there. And that's like an easy way to get in, vegetables and produce, even at the start of the day and in your breakfast. And protein is another thing to prioritize too. Protein helps with keeping you full. It also, when we talk about like the thermal effect of food, protein is another source of that total energy expenditure, and it requires a little bit more to burn protein, to expend those calories from protein. So that's another reason it's really important. It's great for, like I said, keeping you full. And there's lots of varieties of different protein. And ways that you can, mix and match your protein, especially lean proteins like chicken and turkey and things like that. And then there are also some plant-based protein forms as well. Things like lentils are a really great source of protein as well as being a carbohydrate. So you'll find a lot of different foods when you go through your grocery store can kind of double count for some of those macros. So if you like to have salmon or something like that, that's both a source of protein as well as healthy fats and your omega-3s. So that's just an example of how foods can kind of double count. Eggs is another great example because eggs themselves, like the egg white is pure protein. And then the yolk is where you can get the fat as well. So you can get both in one. And so that's when you look at like kind of the big three, the main macros, those are your proteins, your carbs, and your fats. And when it comes to kind of thinking about, how much protein should I consume in a day, there's some rules of thumb out there, about 0.7 grams per pound of body weight is one thing that you can take a look at. It's when you're thinking about how much to estimate protein in a day. There are some tracking tools out there as well. One that I've used is MyFitnessPal, and you can log your food if you find that helpful, to just see what it looks like over the course of a day. I'll occasionally track just to see how things are over the course of the day. I do it kind of, over time, as I've kind of found out what works for me in terms of nutrition, I prioritize protein. I make sure I get fiber. So things like lentils, good starchy carbs, provide those sources, even green veggies. Like that's why I like spinach. I'll like try and get it first thing in the morning, even with my breakfast or in a smoothie or any leafy greens, things like that. They're all really good sources of fiber. And then also foods that have high water content. So foods where you can naturally kind of get that hydration from food. So when you think about vegetables, fruits, so even like an example, like watermelon, for example, a lot of it is pure water, cucumber, pure water, things like that. Those are, some great ways to get water through food. And so those are the kind of the things that I have found to be really, really helpful. I also kind of, in addition of where I've looked at tracking, I also kind of, eat intuitively, where I look at my energy levels. I kind of assess how I feel. Do I feel full at the end of them, for about, say 3 to 4 hours after I've eaten? That's one way I know that I've gotten kind of all of those elements of the meal. And then I also look at, like I said, my energy levels. I look at, did I feel full? All of those different elements can kind of shape nutrition. So I'll pause here for a second. I know I've talked a bit, so we want to give a chance for questions too. Were those suggestions helpful to think about how to think about nutrition?
So I have a question about incorporating fiber.
Yeah.
Into the diet. What's an easy way? Because I feel that's maybe one of the most difficult things for me.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's, like I said, leafy greens, great source. And then also things like lentils are really high on the fiber scale. Beans also have fiber. So if you like black beans or garbanzo beans, things like that, like chickpeas, they offer a lot of great fiber content too. And there's certain fruits as well. I always, I really enjoy raspberries. So that's something that I'll throw into like a smoothie or something like that too. But leafy greens is a great element to get fiber in, because that's one, and it's a great point you bring up where it feels kind of hard to get all of those grams of fiber in during the day. But those are some quick kind of easy ones where you can get some fiber in there. But yeah, the leafy greens, and then if you're looking for like a good starchy carb, like lentils is one that it's one that I've really enjoyed. And it's really versatile. Like you can use it with lunches, you can use it with dinner, and that's kind of something that I've always adopted. I think when it comes to nutrition, is I try and see what foods are versatile, versatile, and can use them in multiple meals.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's a great question. Yeah, the fiber is definitely a big one, because I think protein, we kind of know automatically, we know we can get like lean proteins through like chicken, turkey, and or fish, things like that. But fiber is one of those ones that can seem a little bit tricky. But yeah, really great question.
So one thing I just as good fat, what do you recommend?
Good fats. Yeah, that's a good question. So definitely things like salmon is a good one. Or fish is another, just kind of like I always kind of salmon's one of my go-tos because of like omega-3s. And then having avocado, like a little part of an avocado, is another good one, because fat is also another thing that you can feel that fullness too, from fats. But yeah, those are some of my kind of go-to ones. Also, if you're a fan of like almonds or walnuts, those are some great examples, and they can be kind of, you only need a handful of, so I would, look at like the food labels and what their recommended serving size is as well. But yeah, like a handful of nuts is good too. It's another, and some of them even come in packages. So if you're say you have to go into the office or something, you can take, it's a really portable food that you can take with you as well. But yeah. Oh, and another good one for fiber. I just remembered, came to my head. Things like apples too, because they're also really filling when it comes to looking to get another fiber source in. Oh, really good question. This is such a good discussion. Yeah. But yeah, definitely checking out also like USDA MyPlate. It'll kind of show you that good ratio of things throughout the day to take a look at. But having plants with each meal in some way, shape, or form, whether it's, tossing some spinach into a smoothie is something I have found to be really helpful, because spinach is one of those vegetables that, like if you're to put kale into a smoothie, you can sometimes really taste the kale, and sometimes it has that little bitterness and acidity to it. But like spinach is one of those, I don't want to say bland, but it blends in well when you compare it with like fruit or something like that. So I'll toss like a handful in when I make my I make like a mixed berry smoothie. I've got some like blackberries, raspberries, blueberries that I kind of toss in, and that's something that I find to be filling, and also another way to get the greens in, so to speak. So yeah, so let's we'll kind of shift gears a little bit more into the hydration, since we talked about nutrition, and I had mentioned earlier about like foods with water content in them. So hydration is definitely an important thing because of how it helps support overall bodily functions. We use it as a way to recover following our exercise. We use it to prepare for exercise as well. So that way the body is ready to go. And we have it, like during exercise too. So, but it's really important. It affects, our heart rate, it affects our energy levels. Sometimes, we sometimes think we might be hungry when in fact we are looking for hydration, and that's what the body's looking for. So especially, I know, being like at home right now, doing my 9-to-5 job during the day, I'll have my water next to me, so I have it here, so I have it ready, and yeah, so I just kind of use that as a kind of, I'll refill it throughout the day. Good rules of thumb when it comes to hydration. There's a couple of different ways you can look at it. You can take a look at what your body weight is in ounces, or sorry, what your body weight is. So if you are, like, say, for someone who's like 150 pounds, just as an example, because it's an easy round number that I can use. Take the 150, and then that becomes ounces. So 150 ounces, and then you can go about, I would say, 3/4 to almost 100%. I would say like 75% to 100% of that would be like an average intake throughout the day, if that makes sense. And it's in, if you have things like coffee, if you have tea, things like that are caffeinated, you'll kind of using the water helps you rehydrate, because coffee dehydrates you. So even though it has benefits for energy boosts, and things like that, it does have a dehydrating effect, coffee. So you look at also like your exercise activity throughout the, if it's a higher intensity workout, you'll likely have more water before, during, and after, and things like that. So if the number like that seems kind of high compared to the 8 ounces of water during the day, it's factoring all those other things. And so it may seem high up front, but that's what it's factoring in is, and you can play with that range a little bit, you can start at like that 75%, see how you feel, see how your energy levels are, and things like that. So when it comes to thinking about hydration throughout the day, and, if you, like I said, if you have coffee, that'll play a role too, or the type of exercise that you might do. So that's where that number comes in. And I know for myself, I end up drinking a lot more water throughout the day based on activity levels. And I myself like coffee too. So there's so that's kind of where that comes into play. And having water before you work out, whilst you work out, it is important too. Taking those water breaks every so often when you're taking a class or doing a workout at home. And then one thing that I've always kind of recommended for students and who come to classes is start thinking about your rehydration right after the workout you finished. Thinking it, because it's part of your recovery too, because it'll help the muscles. It helps facilitate recovery during exercise too. So that's another key reason why water is so important. Any questions about hydration? And there's and in MyFitnessPal, there's actually a way you can track your water too. I think Apple has stuff as well, but I know in MyFitnessPal you can add in your water if you're looking to see how you can track it during the day. I sometimes used to do it on a Post-it note, and I was like, oh, MyFitnessPal has it right in the app, so that was even better. So, but that's another way you can look at hydration and how you want to track it throughout the day. And again, also a lot of it is also, it's an intuitive thing too. But it can also help with boosting energy levels. So one thing that I always have found, trainers have recommended it to me, is start your day with water. That be your first thing. Even if it's like a small 12-ounce glass, 16-ounce glass, start the day with water, and that'll be an even greater energy booster than coffee.
Well, good.
So it's something that trainers have recommended to me, and it's it automatically sets the body up for the day. Yeah, I always used to say when I was in the studio that I would always kind of be on like my PSA about hydration, because it's so important, because not only like how we function, in fitness and in exercise, but outside of the gym, in everyday life. Like I said, it helps with energy levels. It helps with bodily functions, and how the organs are operating and all of that too. So it has so many powerful effects. Yeah.
So I have always been told to, but recently I've heard debates about overworking your bodies by drinking too much water. Have you heard about that, and what are your views on that?
Yeah, overhydration is a thing. Because there is a risk of losing excess sodium, because the body needs sodium. So there is that risk. That's why I kind of say, there's a range that you can play with. So that's why some people say that, like, of that kind of formula that I gave earlier, to go like the full 100, kind of play with it and see how it works for you, because that is a thing. Overhydration is a thing. And so it's kind of listening to your body, how you're feeling. Because when there is that depletion of sodium, you do feel those effects. Because the body does need sodium. It's one of the minerals that it needs. So yeah, but really great question. Yeah, you don't want to go too much, but you do want to make sure you have enough. Yeah, so making our way through the wellness wheel, sleep. That's the next one, because I know that's a popular topic that we wanted to talk about today. So yeah, the power of sleep is it restores the body, after a workout, for example, regardless of what time of day you do it, your body's going to recover during sleep. And so that's where it's rebuilding, replenishing, and restoring is during sleep. So much is happening, during sleep, and getting that full amount to feel, replenished and nourished and well rested and energized for the next day is really key. So that's why particularly NIH, National Institutes of Health, recommends between that 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. I know I feel a difference even between getting 7 versus 8. I can feel a difference. And so setting yourself up for a really good night's sleep is important. And so the, kind of sleep hygiene, sleep habits you can think about include, taking a break from screens about, like your phone or your tablet or your computer about 30 minutes before bed. That's a good 30 minutes to an hour before bed. Taking a break from looking at any screens because of the blue light and how that affects your ability to fall asleep. So that's one thing. having your room set up slightly colder, slightly chilled. That helps with your body's temperature as getting ready for sleep. Being able to kind of, if you have blinds in your room, having those closed to really simulate that the body's preparing itself for a good night's sleep. It takes out that excess light, removing excess noise. And like I said, having that break from the break from your mobile devices or screens or anything like that, that'll really all play a role. I've also had trainers recommend you can practice some meditation or just reflection before bedtime, even if it's about 5 or 10 minutes of just quiet breathing, just kind of settling the body in. That's another really good tip. If you have a device like a watch, I know Apple has the Breathe app or something. I think it's called Breathe. That's on there. That's a great thing to practice to help kind of just let the body's nervous system calm down before sleep. Another is I know, like, I have a Polar device, so that's one that I find really cool. That I've just because a lot of my formats that I teach, there's profiles specific to those on there, but it has an app called Serene. Same idea as Breathe. It's just another breathing tool to help kind of really get the sympathetic the body's nervous systems to calm, to reset, and prepare. And it's great to do it sleep. You can also do it in the morning as well. So you can kind of do your meditation practice any time of the day, but even right before bed is great. And it doesn't have to be a super long meditation practice. It can be just a few minutes. And I know you can kind of set times like on the watch for how long you'd like to practice your meditation. And then avoiding caffeine. Good rule of thumb is probably like no caffeine past 1 or 2, because that'll have an effect on what time you'll fall asleep. So as much as I love coffee, I try and stop not have any coffee past lunch. So that's kind of something that I found to be helpful for me when it comes to that, because there's caffeine can keep you up. So yeah, taking a break from caffeine in the afternoons, that will help set you up for a good night's sleep in the evening. Any other questions about sleep habits and things like that? Yeah, it's really kind of almost like not a process, but you're preparing the body for sleep and you're preparing it for a good night's rest. So even those little small habits to build in, and you can practice. I know I'm giving a lot of information, so it's kind of like taking little bits at a time and seeing what works for you. And how you want to, what works with like your schedule and how everything's going for you. You want to be able to make your self-care your own. But those are some helpful tips, I think, for when it comes to setting up for a really good night's sleep. It kind of even starts kind of early in the day, like with no caffeine, and then throughout the day, taking a break from your screens. And then another thing is kind of also, and sometimes it can be hard based on our schedules and how things are going during the day, but kind of giving yourself some time between, like, say, dinner and bedtime, letting the body kind of begin to process the food that it's just eaten, and then heading to sleep. So that's another good thing, because if you kind of eat and then go right to sleep, the body is trying to also process that and then also get ready for bed. So it's trying to do a lot at once. So it's still quite active as it's getting ready for bedtime. So having that little bit of space between dinner and bedtime is a good thing too. Any questions?
Do you have any tips for like when you're struggling with sleeping, like not necessarily insomnia, but like you have trouble falling asleep or wake up in the middle of the night and then can't go back to sleep? It's like I've had people recommend like getting out of bed and then reading something boring and get back into bed. But realistically, if it's like the middle of the night and I wake up, I just don't feel like doing something like that. So maybe something, I guess, a little easier to do without having to like get out of bed and read a textbook.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I kind of find if I've had that happen to me, I will try the breathing apps, like either like Serene or Breathe, and just or even I have like a couple meditation apps that I've used, and that can kind of help. Nature sounds have worked for me. That's just me, because it's kind of like this soothing white noise. So like I know Spotify has a few things like of, listening to like the sound of rain and things like that. So sometimes that's a way to help kind of relax. Because I think that's what the body's trying to do, is it's trying to relax and trying to, calm down again. But I would say trying the slow breaths is a good place to start. Yeah, because then if you're trying to like read a book, you have to turn on the light again, and you have to like do all, the body's trying to react to a new light sensation very early, things like that. So stuff where you can kind of try and like reset, whilst you're lying down, and is a good thing, like the Breathe app, or like I said, even kind of like, I know some people that have had like white noise machines, and they like nature sounds or things like that. That's another way to try and help with that. But yeah, and I think if you're having that trouble kind of resetting, or you're waking up and it feels hard again to fall asleep again. Kind of looking at those things like pre-bedtime rituals, they can help quite a bit with trying to reduce that too. So kind of the break from screens before bed, even reading a book before bedtime, and it can be a book that you're wanting to, it doesn't have to be a textbook, it can be kind of just like a fun book that really interests you, is another good one too. I sometimes do that before bed as well. I will read a book before bed just to prepare the body again. So
Thank you. I think I'll try the breathing exercise, because I do like turn off the screen and I read before bed, but I do have a bad habit of like reading in bed. I've like been told like, well, maybe that's the issue. Like, don't read in bed. But I don't know. I think the breathing might help, like the meditation, just so I'm like already in the dark and I don't have to get out of bed to do it.
Yeah, it's I know, even just taking a few minutes of some slow full breaths, and kind of letting the breath, you'll feel your rib cage start to lift up and outwards a little bit, but letting the breath, and I kind of when I teach yoga, I kind of, during the meditation sequence or shavasana, I always say, try and see if you can feel the breath all the way to your back ribs, and just feel that comprehensiveness of the breath, because that can help as well, just getting a nice full breath in as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Think, any other questions? I think, did I see one? Yeah, go ahead.
Someone suggested, so you talked about meditation in the AM and in the PM. Someone suggested midday, if you can carve out time, or even after dinner, and they called it worry time, because a lot of times we can't fall asleep because of worrying, and it's at the end of the day and we start to download everything that we're thinking. So I've incorporated midday meditations, but not all the time. I have to put it in my schedule, like you said, and it's been working. I sleep better, in addition to the night meditation too.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, when you, like I said, like self-care, you make it your own when you can kind of carve out when it works for you. And I think, lunchtime sounds like a really good time, or even like you said, like right after work is another one, because like the body's kind of like, okay, just, there's a whole day, you know what I mean? Like it's trying to like adapt to everything that it just did. So I think the lunchtime is a good thing to, like today I did like my little lunch break of like, I went for a walk, because like for me, my walks are kind of like a way I meditate a little bit. Like I kind of just like use it as like a leisurely, not a leisurely stroll, but like I'm not doing it to like super elevate my heart rate, you know what I mean? So I kind of use it as like a meditative, reflective kind of thing when I go for a walk. So yeah, that was like my lunchtime activity. I came back inside and I was like, okay, yeah, feel ready for the rest of the day. And yeah, it's like a good little midday break. So yeah, I think that's awesome. About, you know, about a lunchtime or, you know, post-work meditation too. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah, so meditation is a great segue into our next section about stress management. And I think it's, you know, especially now where we got a lot going on with everything, and especially in the world and everything like that. So meditation is definitely one of those things to you know, try and incorporate into your practice. And it can be even just a simple breath practice of like the Breathe or Serene apps, or, you know, and there's a couple of different apps out there that I know are pretty popular. Like Calm, I think there's 10% Happier. There's a whole bunch out there that you can, you know, try out and see what might work for you. Or even listening to just some gentle music can be a helpful way to just have some things in the background as you get used to meditation. And it's, you know, like I said, it doesn't have to be a long practice. It can be a few minutes, but it has that kind of exponential effect when you start to integrate it into your into a regular practice. So it's definitely one of those things to integrate, even in a small dose. It's really helpful. It also helps, I think, with building mindfulness. And mindfulness is kind of, it's a part of meditation, and I think it also helps really build an awareness into how you feel, because you're able to identify, oh, I'm having, you know, thoughts are coming up, or you can start to really feel what's happening inside. You can go internal. It's like, it's something I'll say, especially when I'm coaching, like or teaching or guiding, I should say, a meditation or savasana, is you start to kind of feel this awareness of how your body feels, you know, thoughts that might enter your mind, things like that. And so it brings about that state of awareness, and then kind of through a mindfulness practice or a meditation practice, you can kind of see how you react to it, or how you accept it, and things like that. So that's a really powerful thing with the mindfulness and meditation practice. And then other things like we talked about, sleep. That's a great way to help with managing stress. But also things like having hobbies outside of, you know, your work or your school, other things that you enjoy. One thing that I really enjoy doing is I like to go to museums, but right now we can't because they're closed. But that was like a, you know, pre-COVID activity. You know, being in DC, we have so many museums. I would always like to go to one museum a month. That was like my goal. But now I do it virtually. So that's kind of like my little outside of work and teaching kind of thing that I do, is I'll go to like a virtual gallery and kind of just look at art, because that's one thing that I like to do. Staying connected with your family and your friends, especially, you know, now that we're at home. And if we have family and friends all across the country, all across the globe, staying connected with family and friends, even if you know, say you don't want to set up like a full screen because you know, you've been on your 10th Zoom call of the day or something like that, but you want to just get on the phone and talk to people. That's another great, you know, another great thing. And if you are feeling, you know, stressed or things like that, you know, talking it out can be a really helpful and powerful thing. You know, I think it's, you know, having that support system is a really, you know, really powerful thing. It's really important to have, and staying connected. You know, and then when it comes to like fitness and recovery, you know, if you feel like you've been, you know, in a state of overtraining, giving yourself that time to rest. You know, you can kind of also, I would say, cycle is not the word I want to use, but you can kind of, you know, see how increasing a yoga practice or increasing, you know, a mind and body practice can be helpful with kind of resetting and going through, you know, different phases of training. Can also really help with stress management too. And then, like I was saying earlier, how I find my walks very meditative. If you can, depending on where you are, and if it's you feel comfortable with it, integrating about a 30-minute walk per day, just leisurely, not meant to like get your heart rate up. That is a really helpful tool for stress management, because it naturally starts to help reduce the amount of cortisol. Like it just helps with that reduction a little bit. So we were talking about cortisol earlier. And so that's why when you do the leisure walk, it's not meant to kind of put the same, like how like a workout would put stress on the body. It's meant to kind of be a recovery tool. So that's, I found to do that, I have my little route planned out that I do and everything, but yeah, I find it to be really helpful, relaxing. I'll take some music, or an audiobook, or sometimes just like listen to the noise around me, kind of things like that. But I find those kind of walks can be really helpful from stress management perspective, from just getting activity in perspective. So if you're like, I want to do something, but maybe today's not the day for a full workout, a walk is perfect. A walk can be just as beneficial. The 30-minute walk can be just as beneficial, if not more, than the 30-minute HIIT session that you were thinking about doing too. So the importance of walks like that, it's really powerful. And I'll kind of lead into it as we kind of discuss kind of the total energy expenditure aspect of things. But I'll pause here and see if you have any other questions, or I know kind of the sleep and stress management elements and nutrition were some of the key topics everyone was interested in, but wanted to pause here and see if you had any other questions.
So you will send the information in chat box, right? You said that for your like Facebook, some information so we can see.
Yeah, let me start to put some of those things in the chat before I forget. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So yeah, if you go to, this is my my Facebook page, and there's a wellness group. That's that. And then this is my Insta handle, Instagram. And then if you have other questions, or if you want a copy of the other slides that I've referenced like previously, you can send me an email, and then I'll email it out to everybody. So there's a couple things there for being able to get access to a few different things, like technique tutorials for fitness. The Instagram is a great place to go to for that. And then for the slides, if you'd like those, you can reach out to my email, send me a quick note, and then I'll follow up with you about the with the slides. And then the wellness group, yeah, that's one thing that we talked about, sleep habits in the first week, and then building into this week. I'm going to take each of those different elements of the wellness wheel and just unpack them a little bit more. We'll have some check-ins. I'll put some tips on there, or say like for nutrition, you can we'll say, for as an example, like, how was protein today? If you want to send me like a DM of the screenshot if you're using MyFitnessPal, or just you can leave a comment on the post saying, hey, I felt great, got my veggies in, things like that. There'll be different series of posts and things like that you can engage with and interact with in the group, so that way we can all learn about wellness together, because I think it's such an important thing, looking at all those different elements of self-care, and you can build in little habits, a little bit at a time. I did a discussion earlier in the summer, or later in the summer, actually, about like goal setting and how you can build the small habits, and this is building them a little bit at a time, and taking those small wins and embracing them, and it's the small habits all contribute to your larger goals. So that's a really important thing. When we think about wellness too, it's finding those incremental steps to build in a daily practice too. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. I have to run. Thank you. I followed you and I'm going to email you about the slides.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll have this. I'm recording the rest of the session, so there's just one more little bit that I was going to talk about because I realized, oh, we're right at 7. But we've been having such good conversation, so it's been really, really good. So yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
I'll up with the slides. I have like a little bit left if people have time, but if not, they'll definitely be in the slides about the total energy expenditure, and we've kind of been alluding to it throughout the day. Or throughout the discussion today about what total energy expenditure kind of all is, what it encompasses. So when you look at things like your metabolic rate and also the energy that you're burning from the food that you eat, because your body needs to process it and needs to be able to absorb it, distribute it throughout the body where it needs to go. And then like your non-exercise activity, those 3 things kind of combined make up, depending on overall level of activity and things like that, between 70 to 80% of what you burn throughout the day. So that already is a huge chunk of it. And then the rest of that is the activity you do through exercise, through fitness. And so the majority of it comes from your basic body functions, what the organs are doing, what your metabolism is doing, how you're processing food, and then the non-exercise activity. So those 3 things together, like I said, make up, estimate, kind of, like I said, about 70 to 80%. So it's the importance of all those other elements of the wellness wheel get really reinforced, like nutrition, hydration, our daily activity of like I said, leisure walks, movement in the house, outside of exercise. Those all really add up in the course of the day. So any questions about that?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sorry we went over just a few minutes, but wanted to wrap up the discussion with that point, and I'll follow up. Like I said, you can send me an email with this. That my email's in there with any other questions, if you'd like the slides and things like that. And we'll you can keep me posted on how things are going with integrating these small habits, or if you need any other guidance or advice, things like that. We're here at the gym to help and everything like that. And thanks so much for joining, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.